Okay, testing, testing. It's not the same without my partner in crime. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll see how that sounded. Hi, shareholders. Hi, Charlotte. Doing this is guys, Madeline's gone. Madeline's on a boat. Madeline's at sea. Madeline is on a family trip in the Galapagos this week. I am so thrilled for her. She's on a boat, which is my personal dream. I love boat. Madeline sent me a picture of this boat, and I was like, I felt my serotonin levels rise just looking at this picture of a boat. I love boats. I love sailing. I love driving a boat. I love, and I was like, it's just so interesting to me that I'm probably the happiest ever on a boat, and yet I don't do that for a living. Like, it's not a part of my regular life. So, I don't know, like, Hinckley, if you're listening, any sailors will be like, "Oh, yeah." Hinckley makes these luxury boats that are so beautiful and so expensive. Um, I think it would be really iconic if we were the first sports podcast sponsored by a Hinckley picnic boat, but okay, this is gonna be a little bit of a wild ride, folks. I'm gonna do a little monologue here. Later in the show, we have the Athletics college football writer Grace Raynor back with us. She last was here to talk about Bill Belichick at UNC. And we have my dear friend Jessica Smetana, host of the Echoes podcast, a Notre Dame podcast, to talk about why people have been melting down about Notre Dame not being a part of the college football playoff. So those are amazing interviews. I'm very grateful to both of them. Very lucky to have such smart, funny, lovely women in my life and in sports media. So follow both of them if you don't already. Before we get to the college football stuff, I do have a few little line items here that I would like to take you through. So the Chiefs, actually, I forgot that I was gonna do this. This is all real time, everybody. You're just hanging out with me in my own head. The Chiefs played on Sunday night. Was it Monday night? No, I think it was Sunday night. Yeah, I think it was Sunday night. They played the Texans. And Madeline from a hotel room in Ecuador left me a voice note that I would like to play for you all right now. Just scrolling back in our text past pictures of tortoises that are adorable. She sent me a video of a seal sleeping. That's just one of the cutest things I've ever seen. I'm stalling here because there's a lot to scroll. We text a lot. Okay, I would like to play you this, and hopefully it plays into the mic and not my headphones.
Also, I'm currently watching this Chiefs game on ESPN2 in Spanish. And let me tell you, the vibes are off with the Chiefs. They're not looking good. And probably gonna make the playoffs if they lose this game.
Thank you, Madeline. That is a dispatch straight from her brain. And it's true. They're probably not going to make the playoffs. The Chiefs lost to the Texans. Their record is now 6-7, which reminds me of the thing that the kids say these days, 6-7, which apparently doesn't mean anything, but the Chiefs are 6-7. I don't know. This is the first time the Chiefs have had a losing record in December since 2012. So that's not great. Travis Kelce dropped a pass from quarterback Patrick Mahomes. And the sports gossip element of this that I would like to touch on is that Taylor Swift was at the game. She was in a box with her friend and pop star / actress Selena Gomez, and the writer, actor, director Lena Dunham. Lena Dunham, just an icon of the 2010s. She created the TV show Girls, for those who don't know. She has written a memoir. She has another memoir coming out. She wrote the show Too Much, and maybe I don't know. She's all around. She does a lot. And she's very talented. And She also is like, as New York, London, not someone you associate with sports, which she herself admits, more than maybe anybody I could think of. If you told me 5 years ago that Lena Dunham would not only be at a Chiefs game because Taylor Swift is dating Travis Kelce, but would then post an Instagram with this caption, I would not have believed you. Here's the caption that Lena Dunham wrote with a carousel of photos about this game. My first home team, in parentheses, I happen to be a New Yorker who lives in London, who roots for Kansas City, so sue me. And my first home game with my forever homeboy at Michael P. Cohen. I clicked his thing. I think he works for her production company or maybe used to. I don't know. If you see a new piece of Chiefs merch every day for the next 17 months, blame at Handler Official and keep moving. I don't know who Handler Official is. Sorry. 17 months feels very much like a Taylor Swift Easter egg because Taylor loves to have her friends like toss out random numbers that mean something that you find out 2 years later. She continues, she's in her sports era. People have questions, another parentheses, and by people I mean my parents, who spent my childhood having to ask me to do light laps of the apartment during the summers so I didn't get bed sores, end parentheses. And the guy on the plane home is reading some Alan Watts, always a good sign. Also don't know who Alan Watts is, and I'm pretty well read, so sorry. She ends this caption, she says, love you at Killatrav. Folks, Lena Dunham is telling Travis Kelce she loves him in the caption of an Instagram post after the Chiefs are below 500 for the first time in 12 years in December. That is a sentence I never thought I'd say. And to be perfectly honest with you, I am thrilled and grateful that I can, because without stuff like this, we would not have a show. Thank you, Lena, for your service. I do also think that it was important that Taylor Swift and Selena Gomez and Lena Dunham be at a game like this, because so far Taylor Swift's Chiefs experience has been really charmed. Like, that's not a normal NFL fan experience. Most NFL fan experiences are that your team makes you want to walk slowly into the ocean. It is rare to root for a winning team. It is rare to root for a team that keeps winning. I mean, it's great as a Pats fan, sorry. But this feels like a probably formative experience for the new Chiefs fans that Taylor has brought into the sport, both in her personal life and in the greater fandom of hers, some people becoming Chiefs fans. So I'm sorry that you were experiencing this kind of heartbreak. However, I do think it builds character. So, okay. So moving on to the next little thing here. Gosh, it is crazy hearing myself talk so much and being like, no, you're supposed to talk this much. Stanford soccer invited Taylor Swift to the Women's College Cup game in Kansas City. It was the championship against Florida State. They were playing in Kansas City. I don't think Taylor Swift went, even though she should have. Florida State defeated the number 1 overall seed Stanford 1-0 in the Women's College Cup. It is Florida State's 3rd national title in 5 years and 5th overall. So if you're a soccer player and you are good, I guess you should go play for the Knolls, because this is a powerhouse program. So shout out to those amazing women. Another women's soccer thing, Trinity Rodman, who is a young star of the U.S. women's national team and plays for the Washington Spirit, or played. Her contract was up. She signed with them in 2021. And Jessica Berman, the commissioner of the NWSL, had said originally that she was really going to fight for Trinity Rodman during the contract negotiations with the Washington Spirit to keep Trinity in Washington. Rodman reached an agreement with the Washington Spirit. It was a 4-year multi-million-dollar contract that both Trinity Rodman and her agent and the Spirit agreed to. It would have kept Trinity in the league without overhauling the salary cap or introducing any new rules. This all seemed very by the book. But Berman rejected this because she said it went against the spirit of the rules. So now it's most likely that, according to statements from Trinity's agent, Trinity is going to play somewhere else. And it's probably going to be overseas, where clubs like Chelsea have given lucrative deals to U.S. players like Naomi Girma and Alyssa Thompson. And I think this is a real bummer. And I think it's very short-sighted on the part of the NWSL and Commissioner Jessica Berman. It said that, like, it's going to make it unfeasible for the Spirit to field a team in 2028. It's like, okay, how is that a now problem? And, like, why are you looking out for the Spirit? Like, let them screw themselves if that's what it is. Like, you have to keep young stars in the league, and you have to pay them, and you have to pay women. And I'm very, very sick of seeing the spirit of the rules to not pay someone, especially a young star, a young female star in sports. Like, I'm sorry, when have the spirit of the rules applied to men? And I don't even know if this is like a women-man thing, but, like, I have a hard time feeling that it's not. And I am really sick of women not being paid what their coworkers, or what people in other sports, who do the same thing, men make more. So, equal pay for equal work, everybody. All right, and I'm gonna end on this before we toss to Grace. Angel Reese and Paige Bueckers, two young stars of the WNBA, teamed up with Reese's peanut butter cups, my favorite candy of all time, because it's Angel Reese and then Paige peanut butter cups Bueckers. I don't know. Maybe Paige's name doesn't work here, but Paige and Angel sat courtside at a Knicks game. And this is a friendship. I don't think I knew what Paige and Angel's relationship was. I don't know if they liked each other or didn't. I love seeing this. I also think it's very cool that these are two people who command such a large, they're going to give Reese's more earned media than they ever could have asked for. And I think that speaks to the value. And I think it's great to see brands, even though, we're in a strange little late stage capitalism nightmare over here. I do think it's good to see brands tapping women to be spokespeople in a way that they know is going to move the needle, because it is. All right. Now we're going to get into a college football bonanza. First up, we've got Grace. I hope you enjoy. All right. I am thrilled to welcome to the show college football writer for The Athletic, Grace Raynor. Grace, you were last here to help us unpack some of the Bill Belichick drama. Shocker to anybody listening. We have talked about him. Thank you so much for coming back today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Well, I did warn you that you would have to come back, so I hope that was not a shock.
Yes, I am very glad to be back. I miss Madeline, but sounds like she's living her best life right now.
Yes, I miss Madeline dearly, but she is hanging out with, she sent me a picture of a 100-year-old tortoise in the Galapagos Islands. So
that's amazing.
She's living her best life, and I couldn't be happier for her. Thank you for hopping on today. I want to, we started talking before we started recording, I asked, what are your holiday plans? And you told me that your holiday plans are college football.
Yes.
Can you tell everybody listening what you're doing? Because I think this is a great way to get into what we're going to talk about today.
Yes, let's do it. So the first round of the college football playoff is next week, which is crazy to think about. There will be one Friday night game and 3 Saturday games. So I have a Saturday game. I'm going to Oxford for Ole Miss Tulane to check out the scene there, see if the place is still standing.
Yeah.
And watch Lane Kiffin's ex-team try to go win without him.
So this is crazy to me. I forgot, because last year was the first year that we did the 12-team playoff. Is that correct?
Correct.
Which is college football time. 10 years in college football time is like 40 years in normal time. So 2
Fair.
years, whatever the math is on that. I love that they are doing on campus, like the first game of the playoffs is a home game for the team with the higher seed. I think that this is something I truly believe that college football at neutral site games, which most of the playoffs are, and obviously the national championship is not the same thing. The thing that makes college football is going to a place where people not only do they root for the team, they root for like, that's their home. They went there. Like, you can't I didn't go to the Patriots, but, like, people went to Ole Miss, you know?
Close
So
enough.
but they well, right. I mean, if anyone did, I did. But,
Exactly.
there is this deep connection. So a playoff game on campus, which we hadn't had before last year. Did you cover any last year? And, with all of the for those who don't know, Lane Kiffin, who was the head coach of Ole Miss, is now the head coach of LSU. It was not a pretty breakup. What are you expecting to find on campus?
I am excited to find out. I did cover one last year. I did Clemson at Texas, which was a blast.
Cool.
It kind of stinks that the top 4 seeds don't get these campus games because they all get buys. So that's kind of a bummer. I think we got to figure out that system. But yeah, I think the scene in Oxford is going to be really interesting. I mean, I was talking with a couple of people for a bigger story we're working on at the Athletic, and one of them was like, "Yeah, the whole town is basically trying to pretend like we didn't just get dumped by the love of our life, but we did." And
Oh, no.
and it's kind of this like, "Oh, we never liked him that much anyway," but of course, just trying to pick up the pieces. So it'll be interesting. There's going to still be a lot of Lane Kiffin's fingertips on this team. His offensive coordinator is coming back. I think it was announced this week that 4 offensive assistants are coming back to coach through the playoff. So basically, everyone on staff except for him gets to go on this run, and so we'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see what that looks like.
I have some questions about that. So I was kind of shocked when I said they're bringing back. So, but this is also I got a little confused. I was reading about this and I was like, so by coming back, you mean the guys that Lane Kiffin on his staff said, if you don't get on my plane right now, you're not going to be able to coach with me at LSU. Those guys are now allowed to go back and coach Ole Miss, even though they currently are employed for LSU, like Charlie Weiss, who's the offensive coordinator,
Yep, he's going
junior.
back.
Sorry, not to be confused. So what? Like, so Lane Kiffin's staff that he took to LSU is now going to be coaching, who was coaching Ole Miss, will now still be coaching Ole Miss in the playoffs without the head coach who dumped them.
Essentially, yes, exactly.
Hmm.
We've heard some mixed things about whether or not there was an ultimatum or not. I know Lane came out and said, I never had an ultimatum. But Pete Golding, the defensive coordinator, was promoted to head coach. And so if I'm Pete Golding, I'm actually, emotions aside, I'm probably actually kind of stoked these guys are coming back
Yeah.
because Ole Miss has the best offense in the playoff. They have the number 3 offense in the country, and all the dudes who run it every single week are now coming back for the playoff run. So I think emotions aside, it's good for Ole Miss. Obviously, Lane is upset he couldn't coach, but I think that was the right call. You can't have the head coach of LSU right before the portal opens having full access to his roster.
Yeah, I guess it's still a little crazy to me that I mean, I think it's the right decision too for Ole Miss. I think that first and foremost, you need to think about the student athletes when you're thinking about this. You
Yeah.
need to think about like, okay, if we're actually going to give these guys a chance, we can't replace every coach essentially.
Right.
I do though. It's just this is the reality of college football right now. Is that Charlie Weiss goes back and the transfer portal's going to open in a few weeks, and he's like, "Hey, buddy, have you thought? How do you feel about live tigers at games?" Just tossing that out. It's like there's an element of it that I guess can't be avoided when you have to choose a new coach before the playoffs are finished.
Yeah.
College football is college football's insane.
It's so messy. Oh my gosh, it's so messy. And you know what is the funniest part of it all is that all of these coaches screaming about the calendar and all these people who are screaming about the calendar are the ones who gave us the calendar. It's just like college football loves to like Spider-Man meme itself,
Yeah.
when it's like they made all of these choices. So
Yeah, it's like the Tim Robinson sketch where the guy crashes a hot dog car into a building, and then he's standing there in a hot dog costume saying, "We're all trying to find the guy who did this." It's like all the guys are the guys who did this.
They're
Like, you
all
guys-
right there. Exactly.
Yeah, this is
yes.
So I would love to talk to you. You obviously have a background. You cover recruiting a lot.
Yeah.
This is something that, given all of the changes we've seen with coaches this year, and also, while we're at it, you went to UNC. I just got to bring up the Bill Belichick of it all. I
Yes.
saw that one of the quarterbacks, Max Johnson, who has been at UNC for a long time, is his family tied to UNC too, or are
I
they
don't
just
I
like?
don't know. That's a good question. I don't think so, but
I
his
guess maybe
brother
I'm
was on the
thinking
team.
about his brother was on the team, right? Okay,
Yes.
that's what I'm. So
His brother's a tight end. Yes.
So he is entering the transfer portal. And he seems sort of about as loyal to UNC as you could get. How is anyone going to go play for Bill?
That's a great question because you look at UNC's recruiting class and it is so confusing.
Is it?
Yes, it makes no sense. This is a class that has almost 40 kids signed. It's a top 20 class. A lot of that is volume based because they have a million kids in it. But I went back because I was curious that like the caliber of player
Mm-hmm.
and their average player rating is the highest it's been since 2022. And it's a full like 3 points higher than last year. And
Are you
so
kidding me?
it's so wild. After all these kids watched this dumpster fire of a season, and I would assume some NIL,
Mm-hmm.
rev share cash kind of came into the foray there, but it makes zero sense to me.
So, okay. So sorry. So you're telling me
He
you're
actually like did okay.
you're telling me that people, football players, saw the train wreck at
Yes.
UNC because it was
Yes.
a train wreck. They lost most of the games that they could have
Disaster.
potentially won. Parents were speaking out about what a toxic locker room it was.
Yep.
Bill Belichick, his last press conference was 4 minutes and 17 seconds long. It was a joke.
Ridiculous. Yes.
Yes, it was disrespectful. And so people who play football have seen that and been like, yeah,
That's where
and
I'm
I'm going to
going.
get on that train.
Yes, this is correct.
So,
Now, I think if the price is right, you can get on any train,
yep.
but yes, it is extremely confusing.
So here, maybe, perhaps Bill Belichick's pull as the name Bill Belichick, regardless of all of the chaos around him in the past couple years, maybe there's something to his legendary career that you just cannot be discounted.
Possible. Yeah. And I think I was talking to another coach who pointed this out, like a lot of you've got these like a lot of the parents know him, right? Like they grew up with him. He was the guy when parents who are now parents of 16-year-olds
Yeah.
um so I don't know. I think he still has maybe a little bit of pull there. When you see Carolina flipping a kid from Texas, I think you start to wonder, all right, how much money was involved here? And
Right.
obviously, I think we all know Texas could outbid North Carolina any day.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think there's been a sentiment of like, is the talent going to stack up to the potential paychecks?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not a bad class. It's really not. And I was surprised. I'm very surprised. I'll be really curious to see what he does in the portal. I kind of wonder if the portal kids know too much because they've got buddies in college football, and the high school kids are walking into a little bit of a new phase of life, whereas the
Right.
portal kids, can text a friend like, "What's happening here?"
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's really, really interesting for a team that underperformed in every single area this year.
It's so crazy too. We're talking about like 18-year-olds.
Yes.
I
Isn't that
think
wild?
sometimes I have to remind myself of I don't know. Anyway, okay. Well, that answers a bunch of my questions. That's impressive. I guess money talks. I guess also maybe no press is bad press is still true. Maybe it's like, a
Yeah.
name that you know about him. You certainly know about him.
Yeah.
Um you mentioned something when we were chatting before you came on here, which was about Penn State's recruiting. People
Oh,
might
yes.
remember, our shareholders, listeners of the show, that Penn State fired their head coach James Franklin, who is now the head coach at Virginia Tech, who has hired back his friend Brent Pry, who was
So
the
good.
coach before Yeah, I mean, this is a messy. This is
Only college
Bravo.
football.
How has Bravo not done real head coaches of college football?
Be so good.
They're all friends with each other. They all hate and love each other at the same time. I've never seen messier relationships in my life than those
It's
between
incredible.
right? So what's going on at Penn State now?
So Penn State finally has a coach. Yay.
Who is that coach?
Matt Campbell from Iowa State is
right.
the new Penn State head coach. And all things considered, for how much of a disaster it looked like this search was going, I think they ended up with a great hire. It is so sports gossip pod coded that they were going after the BYU coach, and the CEO of Crumble Cookie got involved.
Oh my God, Grace, I forgot to talk about this.
Yeah.
Wait, can we talk about this real quick?
Yes.
So
So good.
so they were going after, what's his name at BYU?
Kalani Sitake.
They were going after Kalani Sitake, who it seemed like would maybe go to coach at Penn State, but everybody at BYU got really upset that he might leave, and weren't they were like quoting God a lot, being like, God doesn't want you to go. And then the CEO of Crumble Cookies, which is apparently a thing that for some reason I know about because of social media.
Oh my gosh, you've never had crumble?
No.
Oh, it's good. It's like a absolute sugar coma, but it's delicious.
Okay, so it's legit.
Yeah, it is really good.
Okay, well, I guess that makes it a little better. So the CEO of Crumble Cookie, who went to BYU, basically said, "How much do I have to pay you?" Right, to Kalani Sitake this is crazy.
Yes, our Crumble King gets on Twitter and he's like, I can't remember the exact wording, but he's like, some people are not replaceable. Time for me to get up off of the sidelines. And then he starts this like Twitter movement, if you will, or X movement, whatever we're calling it. And he's like, put in the comments why you love Coach so much. And then people just flood the comments with, I must say, some extremely heartwarming and like very endearing stories. But it was just so surreal to see the CEO and co-founder of Crumble Cookie being like, all right, time for me to get into college football, coaching carousel antics.
Truly.
And he's staying at BYU. Yeah.
Maybe this is a lesson that, like, maybe money, well, I'm sure there's money involved that I'm not cognizant of, but maybe you just have to tell coach some nice things every once in a while.
It was, if you want to just like feel wholesome, go read those comments. They are so lovely.
Oh my God. All right. Well, okay. So they didn't get that guy. They get Matt Campbell. Max
Yep.
Campbell. What's his name?
Matt.
This truly, it's the end of the year. Can you tell it's the end of the year?
It is. It's December.
I'm fried. I am
That
fully
is
fried.
so fair.
Yeah. Okay. So has Matt Campbell been able, like, what was going on before do they have anybody to play for them?
Okay, so signing day happens before Matt Campbell gets the job. So all of the Penn State recruits under James Franklin, I think there were like 27-ish, 28 commits between a lot of them committed during the summer, and then they end up with 27 decommits on Wednesday, which is the first day of the early signing period.
Are you
They have
kidding
no
me?
coach, and they end up with 2 signees.
No.
At one point, they were on track to only end up with 1. He is our national hero. His name is Jackson Ford. He's a 4-star edge he's from Pennsylvania. He committed over the summer. And at one point, he was on track to be the only signee in the class. And then later in the afternoon, they got a quarterback. And I caught up with him for sort of a fun story about it. And he was like, I'm so glad I have a roommate.
Stop it.
It was so funny.
Oh my God.
Just the 2 of them hanging out. And everyone on social media has been so funny. They've been like, build a statue. Like, this kid
Yeah.
is, the most loyal person of all time. So yes, they have 2 commits. That will obviously change in February. Matt Campbell will have another crack at it, and they'll add a bunch of kids from the portal. But yeah, it was a team that started with national championship hopes and finished with the 156th ranked class.
Oh my God. So how many of the players from previous years are sticking around?
That's a good question. I don't know how many are. I would imagine there's probably going to be some turnover just with the coaching change and that kind of stuff. The portal will open in January. And Matt Campbell, to his credit, is a elite developer of talent. He is really good at building talent, doing much more with the resources that he has. He'll be a great fit at Penn State. I really do believe that. But
Okay.
it was just so wild to just like the memes were so great of like this kid just, maybe being the only signee in the whole class. And then the quarterback who ended up signing with Penn State, also very sports gossip coded, it was his fourth commitment, and every single one, just major coincidence, every single one of the schools that he had first committed to eventually ended up firing their coach. So he first committed to Virginia Tech, who fired Brent Pry. Now, it wasn't always like linear, but he committed to Virginia Tech, then Penn State, then he flipped from Penn State to Auburn, who fired Hugh Freeze, and then he went back to Penn State.
Okay, this is wild.
Recruiting is so crazy.
I'm going to be a little shameless here. Like, if any bravo, if you're listening, like, Madeline and I are ready to host that.
You could do it. You would
reunion.
Crush that.
I really think that it should be, you know how mandated in collective bargaining agreements for professional sports, and then whatever the college football equivalent of that is, like, you have to give interviews. Before I think that I think it should be contractually obligated for coaches of the same sport to all get like to have a reunion.
I would love it.
If it's football, say in like March. If it's a WNBA, season ends October, November, make it like January. Like, give it enough time. Or not. Maybe it's right after. I don't know, Grace. I'm just spitballing here.
Can you imagine them all on the couch, like, screaming at each other about tampering and breaking the rules? And oh my gosh, it'd be so good.
It'd be so good. Andy Cohen, where are you, my dude?
It would be so good.
Anyway, all right. Let's wrap this up and circle back to LSU and Ole Miss here. There's something I want to talk to you about. I don't know if you saw any of this. Did you see Kristen Saban, Nick Saban's daughter, Nick Saban, longtime coach of Alabama? Lane Kiffin, now head coach of LSU, was Saban's offensive coordinator at Alabama. And the relationship between them is very puzzling to me because, like, in 2017, I remember when Nick Saban yelled at Lane Kiffin on the sideline and then referred to it as a, quote, ass chewing. Like, he said, and then there was a book that came out last year talking about how Saban thinks that Kiffin's a narcissist, but then, like, through this whole news cycle, Lane Kiffin keeps being like, I talked to Nick Saban, he gave me great advice about following my dreams, and then on College Game Day, Nick Saban was like, yeah, I'm really proud of Lane, and, like, he handled it well, and then Kirk Herbstreit on College Game Day is like, didn't you not let Lane Kiffin, like, there's a lot of layers of mess here. But they seem to lately be playing nice. Kristen Saban left a comment on a TikTok.
I did not see this.
Oh, this is wild. She left a comment on a TikTok, where she said, this is response to something that I'm not fully sure, but she said, there's nothing to tell. I'm assuming she's talking about Lane, created a rumor over 10 years ago that was an obvious lie and ran with it because he thrives off of chaos for his own entertainment, not caring who it affects along the way. Now, the drama he created with a booster's wife at my own wedding reception in 2015, that's a real story. Move on.
Stop it. Okay, first of all, Nick Saban is so upset about this. He's like the king of, like, keep everything in line. Like, that is so messy.
I'm pretty sure this is real. Like, I'm pretty sure this is
crazy.
Kristen Saban, I just think that the spouses of coaches or the children of coaches have been doing the Lord's work recently in terms of giving us drama. So now someone's got to get to the bottom of. Also, Kristen Saban, fun fact, I'm pretty sure her wedding was the one where they drove a white convertible onto the field at Alabama with fireworks on either side of it.
That's cool.
If you haven't seen this, look it up. It's pretty sick.
Yeah, I gotta go look that up.
So there's
that is so crazy. Oh my gosh. Did people respond to her in the comments?
Someone said the queen has spoken.
What was the original TikTok about? I
don't know. I'm realizing I really should have done a little bit more research before. Someone emailed these.
I'm going down this rabbit hole for sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think we got to go down this rabbit hole. If it turns out not to be real, I'll delete this and it never happened. But I'm pretty sure this happened. So that's a roundabout way of asking you about Lane Kiffin and recruiting at LSU. And do you think there's a chance that Ole Miss players flip in the portal and go to LSU to play for him? Do you think, or do you have any sense of, are they mad at him, or like what's the vibe between those two, that team and Kiffin right now?
It's interesting because we hear in Kiffin's statement that he was like, the players wanted me to coach and the athletic director said no. And then you hear some players coming out saying that's not really what happened. And then I talked to a different source who was like, actually, yeah, the players did vote for this in like a leadership council meeting. So I have no clue what the
Oh,
it's a
they
lot of
voted for
he
Lane
said
not to coach?
to coach.
To coach.
To coach. So I would imagine that there's going to be some that follow him. And I think he's sort of the self-proclaimed portal king, if you will.
Mhm.
Come to the SIP was his big thing. I think he'll do well in the portal. And I think he'll do well at the high school level. He just signed the number 2 player in the country who lives in Baton Rouge, is a mile away. At first, he had been committed to LSU forever, and then there was some question about whether or not he was going to wait until February, and Lane got it over the finish line.
Wow.
He'll have no other major competition in state, and I
Mhm.
think people love him, hate him, think he's a narcissist, think he's ridiculous. You kind of you know the Lane Kiffin experience, and a lot of people want to sign up for that. And a lot of people will say, for as insane as he can sometimes be in his personal life, he's still like one of the smartest offensive coaches in football.
Yeah.
So I think he'll do well. I think LSU will give him the resources, and I think it will be some incredible tea for us over the next couple of years for sure.
You know, the one thing that you can say about Lane Kiffin is that he's not boring.
He's not. He is. That man is unequivocally himself.
He is,
At all
and
times.
there's a showmanship quality to him that I
There
think
is.
people underestimate in college football, and I think they underestimate the draw of that. I feel like in some ways, talking about Bill Belichick, I feel like college football thrives on melodrama. It thrives on the ups and downs. I think it's fitting that, teenagers and early adults are volatile too, like, you're really riding the highs and the lows in a way that in professional sports, I think coaches very much try to keep an even keel. I think the best coaches in college sports, in terms of like being leaders of people, also try to minimize the ups and the downs. But I think that there is really nothing that comes close to the feeling of those highs and lows. And I think sometimes you have college football coaches who know that and who know how to make that seem sexy for players who might want to go join them there.
Totally. He's a perfect college football villain, which we
Thank
need.
you,
College
Lane.
football needs a villain.
Yeah.
He's you can hate him, you could love him, but he's hilarious sometimes. He's so
Mhm.
frustrating other times. He's just like perfectly complicated in
Yeah.
that way for this ridiculous sport to lobby
Yeah.
around.
Yeah, now we just have to see if he gets a dog in Louisiana who doesn't actually live with him. All right. Well, Grace, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. I can't wait to read that story that you're working on, and I also can't wait to read your coverage of that Ole Miss home playoff game.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm excited. I'll get down there next week and we'll see what the place is looking like.
Do you get to have Christmas with your family?
Yes, I
Okay.
do.
Okay.
We'll split with my family and my husband's family. We'll do a little bit of both. So,
Perfect.
what about you?
Perfect.
You got some fun holiday plans?
Yes, also gonna be with my husband's family and then my family up in Maine, and taking a second. We'll have 2 episodes the week of Christmas, and then we are taking that next week off, which
Heck yeah.
will be very nice.
Yes.
I love
You guys,
doing this.
very well deserved.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Grace, thank you. Everybody, where can everybody find your work?
At theathletic.com on the college football tab, and then for better or for worse, I'm still on Twitter or
Yep.
GM Raynor. Yeah, that's where you can find
Awesome.
me.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Charlotte.
Thank you so much to Grace. Always a pleasure having her on. You can expect a lot more of that. I am very intrigued to see how this Ole Miss home game goes. And now the hits just keep coming today, folks. I miss Madeline dearly, but I think that this is we're doing our best without her. I am thrilled to welcome Jessica Smetana to the show. Here we go. I am so thrilled to welcome my dear friend, longtime collaborator, dare I say, host of the Echoes podcast and all-around brilliant sports media personality, Notre Dame expert, really everything expert, Jessica Smetana. Jess, thank you so much for joining me.
Everything expert. Wow. Remember what I said about little mock necks, by the way? I wore one for you. That's a callback to our college football preview episode.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. I was going to say, it looks phenomenal. Do we have a necklace going on?
I do. I'm wearing like the Rock costume where he has the fanny pack, you know? That's kind of my vibe if you're listening to this right now. Black turtleneck with a chain outside of it.
It's so good. That's one of my all-time favorite outfits. I think back in the, I guess it was still 2010s when we worked at all of those
jobs,
illustrious media companies. I feel like I would wear that to work by accident like once a month.
The Rock outfit. I love that.
Yeah. But,
it's a good default. Very like Elizabeth Holmes / oh my God, Steve Jobs. I almost said Tim Apple, but I meant Steve Jobs, to just wear like a black turtleneck every day. But alas, here we are.
Here's a hot take. I think that Tim Apple, otherwise known as Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, who took over after Steve Jobs, should have kept the black turtleneck uniform going.
Yeah, I agree. It would have been good continuity for the shareholders.
Yeah, come on. Like, also, it's just a easy look, and then everyone would think that he's still Steve Jobs and like whatever. All right. So when I asked you to come on the show today, I prefaced it by saying I understand if you don't want to talk about this because it's a painful one. As a Notre Dame graduate, a Notre Dame fan, you host a Notre Dame podcast. What was your reaction when you learned that Notre Dame, which had been ranked pretty high all season, was left out of the 12-team college football playoff, and Miami was put in place of them? Well, I mean,
yeah, they got the last spot.
They got the last spot. However, I do also have questions because James Madison and Tulane, two schools which have been ranked consistently in the 20s, as opposed to Notre Dame hovering, around 10?
Like 9, 10, yeah.
9, 10. They are playing in it, even though it's like, I saw people comparing it to like a Make-A-Wish bid in the... I have a lot of questions about who was put in place of whomst. And...
I can't wait to explain how stupid this is to you. Okay, let's...
Yeah, can you give our shareholders, too, a little bit of what the ever-loving heck is going on?
Right. So for a long time, the college football national champion was decided by media members voting on a champion at the end of the year. And then at some point in the 90s, we were like, let's have the BCS, which is a computer algorithm, basically compile stats, and they'll decide who the best teams are, and then they'll play in a championship game. So we had this thing called the BCS National Championship Game for a while. That determined the national champion. And then at one point, everyone decided, well, we don't think that that's fair. We should do a playoff because most other sports have playoffs. So why wouldn't college football, FBS college football, have a playoff? FCS, which is another division of college football, or another group of college football teams, I guess, they have a playoff. So we should also have a playoff for the FBS teams. These are the best of the best. So then we got a 14 playoff, which was decided on by a college football playoff committee. Mm-hmm. And after a while, everyone thought, I think we could make more money if we had even more playoff games. And then you'd have even more teams in the field so that, if your team loses a game in the middle of the season, you don't kind of check out on it because they still have a shot to make the 12-team playoff. So last year, I'm like very much, kind of, I don't want to say dumbing it down, but there's like so much minutia that goes into all of this. So I'm just trying to like streamline it here.
Yes,
but
perfect.
Last year was the first year we had 12 teams in the playoff. So the playoff format that was agreed upon was that the top 5 conference champions would get in, and then there'd be 7 at-large teams. So that's how this year you end up with James Madison and Tulane ending up in the playoffs because they were two of the higher ranked conference champions in FBS college football. And you may also, at this point, be curious, okay, well, why 5? Well, because at one point there were 5 power conferences, the Pac-12, the ACC, the Big 12, the Big 10, and the SEC. So it kind of made sense that you'd have like the 5 conference champions automatically get into the playoff. And the first year of the playoff, those teams also would get a bye week, or the top 4 of those would get a bye week, I believe. So that changed after this year. But again, I'm getting into the minutia. Let's stick to the details here, Charlotte. So
Thanks. Yeah.
Right now, there's 4 quote unquote power conferences. These are the conferences that make the most money off their television rights. They play, the hardest games, the hardest schedules. They're considered above the quote unquote group of 5 schools, which include like the Sun Belt and Conference USA, the American, the MAC, which, love MACtion. Just got to throw that in there. So
Yep.
The way we get
Also,
to James Madison, go ahead.
Just Conference USA is such an amazing name for a football. It's like,
CUSA.
you know what? Yeah, I feel
love
about
it.
Conference USA the way I feel about the way that NBC calls Sunday Night Football Night in America. It's like so
official.
Yeah, you're like
yeah.
Conference USA. Anyway, continue.
So anyways, this season we have, there's 4 power conferences now because the Pac-12, it still technically exists, but most of its membership have moved into the Big 10 and the Big 12 and the ACC. So there's 4 like power conferences, air quotes, and then the group of 5. So if you have 5 automatic bids for power champions, that means you'll automatically have a bid for a group of 5 champion. Last year it was Boise State. This year, it would be Tulane, James Madison, or the ACC champion. Well, why wasn't the ACC champion automatically given a playoff bid? Well, because this year, the ACC had a 6-way tie at the top of the conference, and the way the tiebreakers broke, Duke and Virginia ended up playing for the ACC championship. Duke was 7-5 at the time. They won the ACC championship, but they got left out of the playoff because they weren't ranked high enough because they had 5 losses. So this is just a absolutely just hilarious way that this is all shaken out now, because if you try to explain it to like the average sports fan, it really doesn't make a ton of sense. And
No.
I think a lot of people are like, why are we including Tulane and James Madison and like the group of 5 teams into the playoff when they don't even play, power conference schedules or whatever? And I think that like, if that's your opinion, that's fair. I understand why fans think that. I think the playoff should include representatives from all the conferences if it's big enough. So I don't necessarily have any beef with that. I think there should be a path for a really, really good group of 5 team to get in. And like, it was a big deal when Cincinnati made it in 2021 as a team that was not in a power conference. And they had to beat Notre Dame to do that. They had to play a really hard schedule and do it. That being said, like a lot of the really good group of 5 teams have joined power conferences like Cincinnati or, some of the other teams like that would be in the mix there. But, UCF, that's a whole other, I'm not even going to get into the UCF of it all. But Charlotte, I personally, my opinion is that I don't think it's a problem that the Tulanes and James Madisons are in the playoff, but I think like that's a disagreement that a lot of college football fans have with each other. This was the playoff format everyone agreed on, and this was how it worked this way because the ACC tiebreakers did not allow the quote unquote best ACC team, which would have been Miami, 10-2 Miami, to play in the conference championship game, which would have really solved a lot of problems this year, I think. But Miami lost to 2 8-4 ACC teams, Louisville and SMU, that were not in contention for the conference championship either at the end of the season. And so they were good enough to win 10 games, but not really good enough in the conference to play for the championship. So they end up in this like nebulous pool of at-large teams.
Which is funny because Duke, which was apparently good enough to play in the championship, was 7-5.
Right. Correct.
So
because they lost to UConn and they lost to out of conference teams. And so the ACC conference tiebreaker was a bunch of teams that had 2 conference losses.
Okay.
And so Duke's loss to UConn didn't really factor into where they stood. And I think that one thing that if you are confused by this or have someone to point fingers to, you can point fingers at the ACC tiebreakers, breaking in a way where you do have a 7-5 team in the conference title game. However, also congrats to Duke. They beat Virginia. That's a good win. Virginia was very good this season. So I don't want to take anything away from them. Like they won the games that they needed to win a championship. And I think that that's commendable. But when it comes to like debating what tiebreakers we use, I think that that's certainly something that can be changed, and other conferences have their own tiebreaker, strategies that they use to make sure the best teams are in the conference championship game. But this is where we're at, because Charlotte, all these conferences sort of operate independently from one another.
Yeah.
And the other humongous issue, which I've sort of already alluded to with the Pac-12 breaking up, the Pac-12 as we knew it breaking up, is
disintegrating.
That, like, the conferences, exactly, they're huge now. So you have a situation in the Big Ten this year where Indiana and Ohio State both are undefeated. They play each other for the Big Ten championship. And the game's awesome. Indiana wins. Humongous, historic win for Indiana, who's been a really bad losing football team for my entire lifetime and most of our lifetimes. But so like huge turnaround, and really awesome that they got to play in that game against Ohio State. But there could have been a potential scenario where USC goes undefeated because they don't have Ohio State or Indiana on their conference schedule. I believe they could have all three been undefeated, and then you have to decide who plays in that conference championship game, because the conferences are so big and they don't have divisions anymore, because fans complained about the divisions because the divisions were stacked in a pretty uneven way for a long time. So I don't know, do divisions come back? Maybe. But it's besides the point where we are at now. There is so much. I'm sorry, I've just been talking this whole time.
No,
Charlotte,
it's so good.
But this is where we're at. So there's a lot of things that come into the ultimate discussion where you have a college football playoff committee made up of like athletic directors and administrators or whatever. They sit in a room and they decide ultimately, this is where we're ranking the teams. They have to factor in who the best group of 5 conference champions are. They have to compare SEC schedules to Big Ten schedules, to independent schedules, to ACC schedules. They have to compare losses to wins and this win versus that win. And so I don't think it's an easy job necessarily, but I think over the years, I think the College Football Playoff Committee has generally gotten it right. And there's been some pretty major instances where I think you could actually debate whether or not that's true. And Florida State getting left out after their quarterback got injured in 2023 is certainly one of them that a lot of people are pointing to. But I would say going back to your initial, why you texted me about all this, because Notre Dame was involved. Notre Dame was 10-2 this season. They lost their first 2 games of the season. They won 10 games in a row. And when the first college football playoff ranking came out, they were firmly in the field. And it seemed like, yes, they were going to make the playoff if they just won out. And then the penultimate ranking came out and Notre Dame dropped below Alabama, who barely beat Auburn. And the rationale behind it, because for some reason, the College Football Playoff Committee has like a spokesperson that talks after every ranking when the ranking shows come out on Tuesday. And every time they talk, you feel a little tinge of, are they just making this up as I go along?
Yeah.
And it kind of seems like sometimes they are. Sometimes you're like, well, this does kind of fall in line with like the AP poll and like whatever. So maybe not. Like the BCS still exists. There's some like computer out there that's putting it all together and showing what the formula would be, which I love because you can compare and contrast. Like, what do the humans think versus what do the computers think? And like,
where is that computer? Do we know? I'm picturing that computer in like Iowa.
It's probably just like some guy's laptop and he just posts it on like a Twitter account, if I'm guessing. But it could also be a special supercomputer somewhere. Who knows?
I mean, okay.
But yeah, so I think the controversy with this ranking is that Notre Dame was ranked ahead of Miami and Alabama before last Tuesday. And then Notre Dame and Miami both were idle on conference championship weekend. And somehow Notre Dame fell below Miami, which if you're arguing about like Miami and beating Notre Dame in head to head, like I hear you. I'm not going to argue against that. Like that's a legit argument for it. And I have said all season, like if it came down to it, I would not be surprised if that was what the committee chose because Miami beat Notre Dame in week 1. But Alabama gets to lose their conference championship game by 3 touchdowns, and they don't even budge. And so that's where all these conspiracy theories now come in about like collusion and the SEC and the ESPN partnership and the not leaving out the mighty SEC. And we can't leave Alabama out a second year in a row because they were on the bubble last year, and et cetera, et cetera. So here we are where now everyone is once again questioning the system we have in place and why it is the way that it is.
So here's college football is like one of those math problems that you would get in, say, 5th grade, where it's like if Jess has 10 apples and Charlotte has 3 oranges, but the oranges cost $3.99 and the apples cost $1.29, and a train leaves Chicago at 5 p.m. and you're like, okay, there are entirely too many variables going on here. Why are we trying to make this one problem? And unfortunately, there's no option in college football because it's all college football, and all of these things that simply really cannot be compared must be compared in order to come up with the solution to the math problem, which is ultimately a college football champion.
Right. That's fair.
So you're kind of working with a system that is going to be flawed no matter what. And this is where, to me, like the sports gossip element of it really comes in, because this is where you have like a bunch of people, you know, if you watch the college football playoff committee in their little chairs, their little leather chairs watching the games, like a weird watch along party, it's like, it's a lot of guys just sort of being like, how do we feel about this? And everybody, which is kind of the only way to do it, as we like, unless you want to give it to a computer, or you like, obviously there are things you can do to fix this in the future. But then there will be other problems that arise from that, because you're working with hundreds of college football teams to get to one college football team.
Yeah.
So there's that. Just like I think as a reaction to all of these scenarios. However, as a Notre Dame, both as a college football like objective expert and also as a Notre Dame fan, how have you been thinking about Notre Dame being left off? Because I've seen a lot of people really upset. I also saw Notre Dame is not going to play in any bowl game. And this, to me, makes complete sense, because for people who don't understand bowl games, they don't mean anything. They are simply exhibition games at this point. Yeah, they used to mean something, but with the college football playoff, the way it's changed, and I guess, is the Rose Bowl still like one of the games?
That's a playoff game now.
Yeah, but if you're not a playoff game as a bowl game, then you're like a carnival for Pop-Tarts, essentially,
right.
Which is good in it. Like, and if a team decides, look, we know we weren't close to being in the college football playoffs, this is a great way to end our season, more power to you. It is hard in an age where there is money for players. You get hurt, and then that's it. You know, like it's just it's almost like when a player plays in an all-star game in the NBA and they don't play hard, and people are like, why aren't they playing hard? And it's like, well, because they don't want to rupture their Achilles.
Right.
So I understand why Notre Dame would be like, look, we're left out. We did everything right. We're not going to play in a bowl game. Like, that just kind of makes sense to me. How are you looking at all of this?
Yeah, I think that from what I understand, I talked to Notre Dame Athletic Director Pete Bavacqua on my Notre Dame podcast, The Echoes, this week. And it's more so that the team was disappointed in the process more than the results, because they were firmly in the field for a long time this year and thought that they would be in the playoff if they just continued to win out. And then, of course, they moved down after not playing this weekend. And so I understand why they would be really disappointed by that. But I think if the playoff doesn't do the weekly rankings and Notre Dame is just on the bubble all season, but doesn't exactly know like where it falls and the final ranking come out, and they're not in, I do think that it's probably a lot different than like hearing the rationale all season long. That does just make it seem like the committee is favoriting Alabama because they're in the SEC, even though Alabama lost to Florida State in week 1 and had 3 losses this season. So I think that it sounds like that's more of what the issue is and what was like upsetting when they were watching the selection show more than anything. So yes, but I do want to talk about the decision to opt out of the bowl game. So from what I understand, Notre Dame players found out that they weren't in the playoff. And then within a couple hours, basically the Bulls make their selections. They're like, hey, Notre Dame, do you want to play in the Pop-Tart Bowl? Hey, Notre Dame, do you want to play in the Holiday Bowl? And Marcus Freeman talked to the captains on the team and they talked to the players. And it sounded like it was a pretty unanimous decision that the players didn't want to play in the bowl game, whatever it would be. And I personally, as a fan of the sport of football, I cannot be mad at players deciding to opt out of a optional game because for whatever reason, because football is a incredibly dangerous sport. And I was at the 2015 Fiesta Bowl game where Jalen Smith had a catastrophic knee injury that impacted he was a top 5 projected NFL prospect, impacted his career, impacted his health, and cost him ultimately millions of dollars in a game that really didn't matter. It was a Fiesta Bowl. It wasn't a playoff game, whatever. And so like player opt-outs, I'm never going to argue with. And team opt-outs, it's the same thing to me. It's like, yeah, if the team doesn't want to play, then have a team that wants to play in the game. And guess what, guys? We're still going to get a Pop-Tart Bowl.
Yep.
Don't worry. They filled in the slot. We're good. So I personally I would have loved to see them play another game. I'm a fan of the sport. I love the bowl games too. And I understand why people are like doom and gloom about the future of the bowls because of this, but that's because of the 12-team playoff. That's not necessarily because Notre Dame opted out. Teams opt out all the time if they have coaching changes or whatever. There's several teams that already did opt out this season of bowl invites because of that. So to me, it's really not the end of the world. And it just seems like a lot of the pearl clutching I've seen about it is coming from the perspective of television executives and not really football fans or not really football players who, again, are putting their careers on the line in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Notre Dame in particular, their starting quarterback was a freshman this year. So next year is going to be a huge season for him. Their best defensive player is a sophomore. Next season is going to be a huge season for them. These are players that could have potentially millions of dollars on the line in not just in their college football careers, because players are getting paid now to play in college football games, but further down the road once they become NFL draft eligible. So I don't think it's the end of the world. The players decided to do it, and I think you kind of have to live with that as a fan.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's an aspect of this too when people talk about like the purity of college football, where it's like, well, if players
like moral
don't,
grandstanding about the bowls.
Yeah, and it's like if players don't play, it's we've beyond the pale. Like that's it for college football, and it's like it's almost like anytime I see that kind of argument, it's almost nostalgic because I'm like, gosh, it brings me back to the days when people were saying like, don't pay the players. It feels like we're
do
so
it for
far.
the love of the game. Right.
It's like, what? So I don't know. I think that it's very hard to argue with the logic of players making the decision that's best for themselves as opposed to what might be best for what some people somewhere think is what college football should be. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I think fans have a lot of nostalgia for the bowl games. I totally get that. I really enjoy watching them, like I said. But I also think that when we moved to a 12-team playoff and made all the New Year's Six games part of the playoff format, this was a natural outcome that at times you would see teams not want to play in them. For a long time, it was like, ooh, let's see what kind of swag bags the college teams get at the Bahamas Bowl. And now it's like, if you play for one of the major programs in college football, you have revenue sharing now. Like you have legitimate NIL opportunities where you can make millions of dollars. So those things just don't matter quite as much to a lot of teams. And again, like I think there are still going to be enough teams that want to play in the bowls that I think will still have bowl. I should also mention like 40 bowl games. There's so many bowl games. So like
Yes.
the importance of them does tend to be diluted when you do have so many, and basically any team above 500 can be in one. So that's part of it too. But like, we should just be clear that these games, yes, you get 15 extra practices if you make a bowl. That's a good reward for a football program, and one that a lot of teams will say yes to so they can play in the game. But otherwise, yeah, you're just asking your players to, stay on campus over the holidays, usually for Christmas, sometimes for New Year's, and play in a game that doesn't really move any needles, doesn't make a difference. It's just for people at home to watch and have fun watching. So those are what the stakes are. And like, I think we all need to accept that that's what we signed up for with the 12-team playoff, which I also would say, like, I think a lot of fans didn't really want to move to a 12-team playoff. I think a lot of fans would have liked to see maybe 6 teams or 8 teams before we went from 4 to 12. So this is what we have now.
So here's a question for you. I've seen a lot of people saying like, well, the only way to fix this is to move to a 16-team playoff, which to me is like, okay, so then the 17th team can be pissed off. Like, I'm not sure how that solves anything except or does it?
Well, I don't know if it solves anything. There's still going to be bubble arguments no matter how many teams. Like, there's bubble arguments about the NCAA tournament, and there's 68 teams in that. So I don't think that fixes it from that standpoint. But I will say one of the interesting things that's happened in college football over the last 5 years with NIL and the transfer portal and like just all of the changes in the sport itself is that there are more teams that I think are competitive in a playoff format now than there were 10 years ago. So there has been I believe a change in the sport itself, and adjusting the postseason to account for that, I don't think is necessarily a wrong thing. Like I think, Notre Dame making the field this year, they would have probably been one of the favorites to win the national championship game. So should a team that's a potential national championship favorite or has like the 3rd or 4th highest odds to win the title get left out? Like, no, I think that there's something wrong with your process if that's the case. And so if you expand it, then there's probably fewer opportunities for that to happen. But, at the end of the day, like, I think the sport itself really has become more spread out. I think there's a lot of data to support the fact that, the top 10 teams are closer together now than they were, 10 years ago when Alabama was ruling college football and had these just massive teams with immense depth and talent that could just steamroll anyone in their path. Those days seem like they're probably over for a number of reasons. So, maybe we should be flexible and adjust, but I don't think you ever end up with a situation where everyone's always going to be happy all the time. But I do think you want a situation where you have a playoff field that reflects who the best teams in your sport are.
Yes, especially if you are going to make a point of leaving spots for the Tulanes and the James Madisons. Like, it's like, okay, if you want to, because there just is going to be that discrepancy between those massive programs. I mean, not that those programs aren't massive, but like,
right.
If you're going to make it so that there is a path for everybody, you kind of have to make it so that there's a path for everybody, like including the Notre Dames in this scenario. Real quick question for you. In terms of recruiting, like when does the transfer portal open?
So I believe it officially opens like in a couple weeks, like around the new year.
That's a whole other episode that I'm going to have you back for, because it's like, well, while teams are still, okay, then I'm going to end on this. Can you please tell me your favorite detail of Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss to go to LSU while they are 11-1 and potentially could win a national championship?
I mean, the whole thing was crazy, but the Juice Kiffin not being his real dog allegations did surprise me. I don't know have you gotten to the bottom of that mystery, but you have.
Well,
okay.
I don't know if I've gotten to the bottom of it. We talked about this last week because it turns out that the dog was raised by Wild Rose Kennels, which is like an elite hunting dog.
Oh, okay.
Kennels in Mississippi. And he didn't actually live with Lane for the past 2 years, although Lane legally owns the dog.
Oh.
but it was like a,
Okay.
you leave him with the, it kind of made sense to me. I think ultimately it's better for the dog to have been left behind with the people who have been caring for him for the past 2 years.
Yeah, but it's unfortunate for all of us that we were led to believe that this was the family pet.
It's a wild PR strategy to have. They had a juice cam. They had a camera on the dog when they would walk out at the Grove and the Walk of Champions. They had. He was in all these commercials. Like he had his own Twitter account, and it's like, if you're gonna do that, I really do think that the dog should live with the family.
Yeah. I think wild PR campaigns are a feature and a bug of the sport of college football. I mean, going back to your point earlier, just to put a pin on this, is there a great way to crown a national champion in a sport of 136 teams that all play 136 different schedules and have, hundreds of players apiece? No. Do I think that 12 teams is a better way? Probably. I mean, you saw last year, like Ohio State wouldn't have been in a 4-team field, and they were clearly the best team in the country when all was said and done. So based off of last year's results, I would say like 12's better than 4 in this era of college football. Maybe 16's better moving forward. I can't say. But I think that there's unintended consequences anytime you make changes like this. And one of them is that, the bowls feel different now, but they are still going to be on TV. We're going to watch them. And people have been talking about the demise of bowl season for years. It still hasn't happened yet. Maybe it will at one point, but as far as the networks are concerned, they still get good ratings and people still like to gamble on them. So they're happening for now. So, I mean, in the future, maybe we can see, but right now, I just don't think it's the end of the world for anybody. It's sports, guys. Like, it's going to be, I say this as a Notre Dame fan, I'm super bummed that they're not in the playoff, but like, we gotta like move forward now. Stop clutching our pearls about the Pop-Tart Bowl.
The Pop-Tart Bowl is going to be fine.
Someone will eat the Pop-Tart. I promise you.
Even if the Pop-Tart Bowl isn't fine, here's something that I would like to say to everybody who's worried about the visuals of the giant alive mascot turning into a toasted giant pastry. They could do a brand activation. They could do that at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade if they wanted. We're not going to lose that visual because that visual is worth a lot of money. So everybody can relax. It might not be with football players. For now it is. I think we'll live.
Right. Exactly.
Anyway, thank you so much, Jess. You were an absolute delight. And we'll hang soon.
Yay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much to Jess. She has forgotten more than I will ever know about college football. And anytime I have a question about why is something happening, she will give me an explanation, even if the explanation, she can make college football make sense in a way that maybe college football doesn't deserve to make sense, if that makes sense. That's our show today, folks. Thank you so much for hanging out. Please rate, review, like, and subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your shows. You can follow us on Instagram at Sports Gossip or TikTok at Sports Gossip Show. I think Madeline would be very proud of me for having said those things correctly, unless I didn't, in which case she will let me know. That's what we got, folks. And I hope you all have a lovely week. We will be back with a mailbag that includes Madeline on Thursday. Okay, bye.